Hi, I'm Debbi Vandeven, and I was the jury president for Experiential for D&AD. And I work at VML Y&R, and I'm located in the United States.
Just been judging at D&AD. So why do you think a D&AD pencil is important? What does it mean to you, and what's important for the industry?
I remember years ago, when I was much, much younger, hearing about D&AD, and so many people wanting to have a pencil. And as I got more experience in my career, I learned a lot more about it. And I also learned about how important it was for creative excellence at D&AD. Not just the craft of the work, but the idea and how inspiring the work is. So for us, I know at my company specifically, it's one of the highest pieces of creative reputation pieces that we can get.
Yeah, and do you think at this time we find ourselves in, where who knows what the future holds? It's all a bit up in the air. Creative awards remain important for the industry? Is it something that keeps its power and prestige even in these difficult times?
Yes. So that's what was difficult. So the tough year that we're having in the industry, it was a decision a lot of the agencies had made, overall, which was cutting awards. But the only reason any agency backed off cutting awards was to save jobs. So it remained extremely important as celebrating creative work. Pushing each other, and I think as an industry we've been very good at that, pushing each other to do better work each year, come up with things that haven't been done before. So I don't think it's changed for the creative community at all, and actually the community as a whole. I know our CEO is very much behind the award shows. For us, we actually get better clients and more clients when we do win awards. So we don't look at it as, just look at what we've done. We look at it as a piece of recognition in the industry that you can do really great work that has a return on investment for clients.
Taking a bit more of a focused look at the experiential category that you were in charge of, what were the things that you and the jury sort of came to a decision that you were looking for when you were thinking about what work you would award? Like, what does it take to win a pencil in Experiential?
So Experiential, I want to preface this by saying this year, we started off just talking about the fact that some of the things that happen in Experiential, like bringing very large crowds together, things in Experiential is sometimes actually tactical, like where you touch screens right after another person had just touched a screen, or, there was a lot of things that you couldn't like put your mind aside on, like just because of the situation that we're all in, and not knowing what next year will bring. We all looked at the situation and said, we might not see some work like this for a while. You might not see a piece of work that has a lot of people in one place. So keeping that in mind, that when we looked at the actual awards, we were looking for things that we always start with, which is what makes you jealous. If you really wish you had done that piece of work, that's an easy way to think about it. I know some topics came up as we went in the work a little bit. Some topics came up about pieces done for just awareness and not having an outcome that you really, it wasn't so much that we were talking about effectiveness of everything, but just if you're going to do a piece of work, especially in public service type work, we'd like to see more that it actually makes changes, than just doing a piece to let people know about a problem. I think, to be honest, our news already lets you know enough, like you can get the problem, but it's how are we going to solve it, I think was a really interesting topic. But we were looking for work that obviously was D&AD standards, something that was inspiring to us, that we would be jealous of the work itself, that it was very well crafted. So you were taking all points together in order to award from, our short list and up, honestly. And we had some really great discussions about the work too.
It's interesting. I think one of the things that's come out of quite a few of these conversations is the place that craft plays within these brilliant ideas, and how important craft is, especially for D&AD awarding. So I'm interested in where craft sits inexperiential ideas, because it's sort of maybe an element that people don't think about so much.
Right. Because a lot of times with craft, you're thinking about, a piece of film and was it very well crafted, or a piece of print, was it the illustration amazing, right? Like, so you're looking for that. But in experiential, I think for us, even came down to if something was social, is it more than putting a post out? Did the craft of what they do, was it much, much better? We had a great discussion about the Grave of Thrones piece, and we loved it. I mean, it was a great piece of work. And I got to a very interesting part in there about craft, because it was so beautifully crafted. The gravestones, that were definitely sculpted. But I thought it was funny because one of the jury members go, this would win my highest award if they'd done it out of stone. It's just, that's the kind of craft you can't even get to, but it is funny because no matter what, you want to do a piece that, that just everyone's jealous of the craft. I was thinking through just some of the other pieces of work in there. You saw that there's a nice piece with Glade, and there was a great discussion about that piece of work. And it was such a smart idea to actually do a product placement inside the packaging, inside the boxes that you're already ordering, right? So you can smell Glade. But the subject turned, and it turned into, was it good for the world anyway? Like, the plastic, where we're not solving the problem with plastic in the world, we're just adding to it. So although the product placement was brilliant, I mean, it was a brilliant thing, I think it kept it from going higher, in judging because of things like that. So, it's nothing's perfect when we start looking at the work, when you think about that. But I think we really talked about things, that were great for the client, great for the world, great for the consumer, overall in experience. There was a discussion between Amazon and Walmart in that regard too. Because Amazon has a position of trying to do the very, very best for the consumer, like always thinking about what the consumer will think about. And I'm nothing against Walmart, but when Walmart looks at it, I do think it's very highly on, you're going to get a good product at a good price. So it was much more product focused. And that piece was ran in Walmart's, which actually made more sense based on those two audiences. But in the end, it just came out to the fact that, we don't want to add, more plastic to the world, or, we don't want to do things like that or encourage it. So I think that's the reason it probably didn't go quite as high as it might have otherwise.
And so sort of thinking back to when you were about to start judging, what were your expectations going into judging? And then did the experience meet them? Is there anything that set, I mean, obviously the way that this year's judging happened was quite fundamentally different, but do you think that changed the approach to judging? I think I'm just sort of interested in how judging went and what it was like this year.
Yeah, so judging this year, I mean, I definitely was a bit nervous about the process. I've been president of several other juries, and I'm really comfortable with online judging. Like, of course, spending the time by yourself, going through the work, making notes, anything that you're going to do, but you're used to the discussion in a room. And so I was a little bit nervous about it, but honestly, the jury I had was fantastic. They were on time. They stayed engaged in the conversation. Everyone definitely spoke. You could get comments out of them and really good discussion this way, just like everyone's getting so used to the Zoom calls and all of them, Microsoft's. I mean, I think I have 5 different types of video conferencing stuff at home now. So I just know that, the process still went well. I just, no matter what I'm going to say, we're going to miss being in a room together. And I think more as a jury, it's because I've met some really fantastic people in the industry in juries. And so like building the relationships that we get and that community isn't quite the same, if you're never going to be in the same room. So that would be the only part. Other than that, I felt like our jury did really good discussing it. So I didn't see it drop off. You didn't have anyone afraid to speak or not getting enough time. And And there were no arguments over work. There was, you know, debate, the way people thought about work, but no arguments at all.
I think that's quite interesting, and I think leads me into the idea, were there any pieces that maybe didn't stand out to the jury in general initially, and then because someone was able to explain an interesting piece of cultural insight, they rose up the process?
Well, okay, I'll say this. There's a piece of work that that stood out, but I think it was one of our yellow pencil winners, and I think it ended up a yellow pencil winner because we needed more context to the work. And it was for Stevenage Challenge, which was the BK work. And I'll admit, I'm not soccer or football isn't, you know, I'm not well versed in the subject. So when we were all talking about that, the team, some of them being from London and other areas in Europe, they definitely could bring more to the table on how the FIFA game worked. You know, if you're a gamer, you know more about that. I personally love the work, and the more I watched the case and understood about it, my agency did the work for Wendy's for Fortnite, and it is a type of game hack, you know, without actually sponsoring the game, which is exactly what happened here. I mean, they sponsored the team Stevenage with the shirts in real life, which got them in the game a very different way. So it was an ingenious sponsorship, you know, overall. And I mean, I gave it props for all of that, you know, thought process of the team to figure out how to make BK part of the game without just putting a big sponsor, you know, on the game.
Were there any other pieces that you thought like stood out above everything else for you? And what was it about those pieces that made them super interesting?
Well, I mean, we definitely had lots of great work and stuff just in our short list in general that was really nice. One piece that was very, very funny was Ubereats. That piece was it's just something that no matter what puts a smile on your face. And it was, they have a shark vehicle that drives around the city, and they put the fish sandwich in front of it. They made another car, so it looks like the shark is eating the sandwich. I mean, it's just simple, brilliant work that's going to make people laugh. And so like there's stuff like that was nice. I think something that that did well this year was projects that had some levity to it, projects that like made us smile, things that you can either say because of the way the world is right now, like things that had really heavy subjects were actually, I think, harder for us, and things that made you laugh or smile tended to do better in this jury. So the other piece that I'm going to throw out that is wonderful and did well, and everyone loved it. So there wasn't any jury member that even had a discussion about it. It rose to the top immediately. And it's another yellow pencil, and it's the punishing signal. And if you haven't seen that work, like it was an immediate for everyone. And I love seeing that it was from India, and it was so relevant around the world. And I think that's what struck everyone. So the punishing signal, they worked with Mumbai police, and everyone knows what it's like to sit at a light and have everyone honking. And I thought about it a lot, you know, in New York, and, you know, the team that was from London, like people like from all over, that it's actually just raises your anxiety at lights, you know, and everyone laying on the horn. So what they did is it counted down. If the decibels were too high, it gave you more time. So it was the smartest punishment. So if you're going to have to sit longer, people would finally quit honking in order for their line of traffic to go. And all of us thought that experience was better for everyone. So, and it just moved up the judging straight up to the yellow without anyone saying it shouldn't be there. So hands down, it was a great piece of work.
So I think it's interesting that you pulled out humor as a thing that appealed to the jury members. But I was interested if there were any other trends or themes that you sort of saw emerging in the types of work that were being made and then doing well.
There were some trends in technology. So, and I think we started seeing that over the last couple of years, but when I say technology, like a lot of times the technologies like more transparent. It's made the work better, but it's not the idea itself. So a piece like Street Vet, that was Purina, you know, from Nestle, that piece, if it can actually help diagnose anything wrong with your dog, and the I mean, it's a normal, again, it's, you know, animal behavior, but it's tapping into a normal behavior and doing something great for the world. So I do have to recommend that piece. Also for me, the case study itself, which is always very, very important when you're judging work like this, because you don't have a lot to go off of. So that case study, you know, you can read about it, but the case study tells the story. And the way they talked about the technology in that case was very simple. You understood how it was used, and it wasn't about the technology. It just enabled the idea. So I think there's been a few of those kind of trends throughout the work. And then, you know, another yellow pencil for us actually used what I would consider creative e-commerce. And it was the Nike Air Max piece. And it was definitely culturally contextual, because it was Brazil, and they had painted over the graffiti, which I've seen before, you know, cases around that as well. What I loved about it is the way that they seamlessly integrated the product with the Air Max being on the characters in graffiti, and then making it into e-com with, you know, geolocation. And I think you're going to see more and more of that type of technology being used. A store being anywhere, you know, like you being able to buy something, which is very dangerous for a lot of us, but like being able to buy something on impulse is also, the great thing about that one is it was part of street culture to begin with. So it fit in so many different ways. So that piece of work was fantastic, and, you know, moved to the top too. So I would definitely say overall, the team that judged it felt like trends in that area, like I said, those were sort of the main kind of things. Still work that was brilliantly done and executed. I think the categories that I saw having the toughest time are again at conventions, like, you know, like big, like CES type, you know, entries, things like that are still not moving to the top. And I can't, maybe it's because they're so overwhelming to begin with, you know, that's like a really big thing, and the idea itself isn't so simple. Like I can't quite tell what's causing them, but a lot of that work in experiential has not moved to the top in, you know, in different areas. There was some really great purpose-driven work in here. You know, different things that brands were doing. There was for Lilly Oncology, it was actually the Get Up alarm clock, and I don't know if you've seen that piece. We had a great discussion on this piece. So for oncology patients, they use social in a very good way. But what happens is the alarm clock in the morning shines a light on your ceiling, and it's posts and videos of friends and families, and, you know, supporting people for anyone who has cancer. And it's messages about how important it is that they get up, you know, and like, you know, take on the world. And just, so it was really inspirational, and it was still using technology in a new way. I think what made that piece stand out was, you know, social can also be used for bad. We all know, like, this was a very positive social message. So that piece of work also did well in this. So I think those are the kind of things. There was all different kinds of experiences. We actually saw a lot of online experiences. The BK Burn ad that a lot of people know, that one did very well in this jury as well. And it was using behavior, you know, that actually, you know, fought against your competition in the ads to burn the ad. And it was an AR, you know, a reality piece, but it's fun. It was also outdoor, you know, so the experience was more enhanced. It wasn't just looking at an outdoor board. You were more engaged in the work. So there were some trends around stuff like that too.
So I think the next point I was interested in, like, we're obviously in a strange, challenging, different time. What do you think, like, the world we're going to find ourselves in the next 9 months? Like, what's that going to mean for experiential work? Like, it's obviously going to have some profound impacts, but you think it's going to, well, I'm just interested in what it's going to do for the category.
I think we were all we were all wondering the same thing. I think what our advice was even to D&AD about this category was, we believe that you're going to have a lot more in online areas, next year, because we were forced to do so much more online, over these months, instead of doing a lot of more street type events or doing experiential work. Like I mentioned before, there was a beautiful piece that was about windows. So you think of shopping windows, and then you think of people like interacting with the shopping window, like on a street, and there's probably less of that, that will happen in the next round of juries. But I think you're going to have a lot more online stuff that's going to happen. So experiences through social, definitely some in technology. And I think, we definitely gave them some advice, the team, to consider broadening their social area out a little bit in online categories, just because you will also have a very large piece of kind of public service messaging and stuff that's happening right now in the world as well. I don't know if they'll want to divide out anything with COVID or anything with Black Lives Matters, like if they'll divide anything out or if they'll put everything together. But those experiences that we're seeing, you're going to definitely see work around that area going into the 2021 jury.
Probably my last question here is, D&AD obviously has a mission and a mandate to try and work with the next generation of future creatives and future stars of the industry. So they probably are facing a tricky time coming into a very uncertain world. So what sort of advice would you give to the next generation of creatives looking to make a mark?
I have to start with this. So I've been in the industry for 25 plus years. So I'll just put that out. And when I got into the industry, I mean, it's so strange because I did have advantages. I happened to know what an agency was, even from the time I was in high school. It was based on friends of the family, right? I knew what an agency was. I knew I wanted to be in creative. I went to school for creative. And knowing that I always wanted to be a creative director, but I knew that from a very young age. And so I think that's like our responsibility for the next generation too, is certain diversity that we're not looking at, that don't think about this industry as a career, because when you don't see it, you can't become it. So I think that's our responsibility. And I think D&AD plays a very large role in that. And then just speaking about my own experience, which is where I feel I can say something relevant, and it's very hard for me to relate to other issues. And I know that, so I don't try, but I can do this. There were many times in my career I was the only female in the room. And being in that position, you have a fear of failure. And you have it mostly because you're very concerned about the generation behind you. If you fail, what will that do to the next generation of women, in the industry? So I learned over time that I definitely had the right to be there and to voice my opinion, not be afraid of saying, because I remember a long time ago, even a situation in judging that was over a Huggies commercial. And, most of the men in the room didn't even buy diapers. They didn't realize the context to the commercials as well. And so they weren't it's not that they didn't like it. They didn't have relevance for the project itself. And I think what's very, very important now is, as we get more diversity in these jury rooms, is that people feel free to speak about everything that they bring to the table, and you bring your own life to the table. So I really hope that happens much, much more, and now at a much faster rate than I think we've been blinded to for the last several years.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point to end it on. So thank you very much.
So thank you, D&AD.